What's up guys, it's John Reeves Live, and today we're going to be watching two music videos and an explanation for RM. This is going to be Wildflower, the music video, Still Life, the music video, and then a Bookish Theories explanation of Wildflower. I'm excited to be doing this. We've got two songs in one, so let's get into it right freaking now. 3, 2, 1, boom! A big hit! Yes. That's so pretty. Dang.
그저 화려하게 치고 싶은 날 시작의 전부터 나 상상했었지 그때 웃으며 박수 쳐줄 수 있게 나 소원했어 나
God, the visuals are beautiful.
이 모든 명예가 이제 멍해가 됐을 때 이 욕심을 제발 걷어가소서 어떤 일이 있어도 오늘을 나로 하게 하소서 Oh, every day and every night Persistent pain and criminal mind 내 심장 소리에 잠 못 들던 밤 창밖에 걸은 청승마 지초승달 I do wish me a lovely night 내 분수
This song is freaking beautiful. He's an open book, I feel like, whenever he writes songs for himself. I think like any of RM's, his mixtapes, and this seems to be like, it's just an open book of his thoughts, his struggles, and I love that he is so vulnerable to us whenever he writes music like this. I'm going to back it up because it stopped in the middle of the song. Also, long-haired RM's pretty freaking awesome.
저기 날아오르는 풍선을 애쓰지고 다져 물어 대체 지금 너 어때 Where you go, where you so, you where you
Oh my god. That is so beautiful.
내 마지막일까 전부 진절이 나 하나 열까지 다 이지그치 끝한 가면은 언제 벗겨질까 Yeah, me no hero, me no villain 아무것도 아니나
God.
기억들은 안 포기해 난 눈물을 판 속에 시선을 던져 하루에
I just want to say this too. I feel like that line that he just said a second ago was a little bit of imposter syndrome coming through the cracks there. He said, I'm no villain, I'm no hero, I'm barely anything. That's just him stripping away any of his ego. To a lot of people, he is a hero. I'm sure to some random people, he's a villain. Probably to some haters, right? But to him, he's just like, I'm nothing. Doesn't matter if you're a freaking rock star or if you're a friend. Your impact in the world means a lot more than you personally will probably ever know. Most often than not, people don't understand their own value or their own worth in life. And RM for sure, like, raise your freaking hand in chat if he has helped you out in any way at all. Lyrically, if his lyrics have helped you in some way, if I could talk to him right now, I would say, dude, you are a lot of people's heroes. You just don't know that. I'm gonna go back.
Yeah, me no hero, me no villain 아무것도 아니나 회전은 반복돼 기억들은 안 포기해 난 눈물을 판 속에 시선을 던져 하루에 뭘 원했었던 건지 제 기억이 안 나 얻었다 믿었던 모든 행복은 여자였나 Yeah, no matter what's wrong 그게 뭐가 됐건 새벽의 호 자락을 붙잡고 뭔가 소해내던 기억 목소리만 큰 자들의 사회 난 여전히 침묵을 말해 이건 방패과수가 독답해 모두 오해 편견들의 자게 반갑잖아 너의 행각 내 두 발이 여기 땅 위에 이름도 없는 꽃과 함께 다시 별에 가시고 소확해 발밑으로 와주고 목적 없는 목적지로 슬픈 줄도 모르고 그림자와 저 친구로
God.
아무것도 없었지 And don't tell me like gotta be a someone 난 절대 그들처럼 될 수 없음네 그것이 작은씩 여태껏 날 지켜온 단 하나의 힘과 철 타는 불꽃에서 들꽃으로 손에 내서 영원으로 나의 황량한 들의 나무를 언젠가 나 되돌아가래
Oh man. Ooh. God. Again, what a freaking beautiful and honest and open song. He just is really good about letting you know exactly where he is in life right whenever he's writing that song. It's so freaking... that was beautiful. I think I said kind of a lot of what I think this song is about. I would love to have it explained before I make a complete ding-dong of myself, which I have done numerous times before. Honestly, though, I do feel like he's saying a lot of stuff in there that's very relatable as far as like my dream devoured me, like what happens once you do have success. I feel like a lot of the times people will have this like idea of like, I don't know, like the whole when I grow up, I want to be X. Whenever I'd be considered successful if I get X. If I like, I'm going to go to school so I can be this. And you have these dreams, these goals, these ambitions, you have these things, and then you never really plan on the afterwards. You know what I mean? Like what happens once I do become a rock star? What happens if I do this? You know, you just get to that point and then that's the end goal, but then there's still life after that, you know? And I think that this song kind of in a little sense is maybe like talking about like that is where he's at, kind of like, what do I do now? I've already reached the top of the mountain. Where do I go from here, kind of? And that's kind of like, that's just me putting my thoughts into this. I don't know that that's exactly what it's about. I'm hoping that Bookish Theories can explain a little bit better. So let's get into that video right now. Freaking swipe it!
Theories. In today's video, we'd like to talk about Aram's Wildflower, focusing on a little breakdown and analysis of the lyrics and the music video to see what they can tell us about the message of this solo debut. Wildflower is a song composed by Namjoon that features the collaboration of Cho Yoo-jin, the legendary vocalist of Korean rock band Cherry Filter. As we'll see in a second, this is a track that in many respects reflects the intention of the album as a whole. If Indigo is described as the last archive of his 20s, Wildflower is a song that summarizes the contrasting emotions that this past decade has brought to the surface. From him yearning for a flame to him getting burned out after reaching it, Wildflower describes Namjoon's desire to live a simpler life after realizing that the limelight is not really for him. If the exciting lifestyle that he always dreamt of can be compared to fireworks that explode in the darkness but disappear just as fast, Namjoon compares himself to a nameless wildflower who sings of silence in a world that only praises the loudest voices. Divided between these two contrasting worlds, Namjoon emerges as a flower work, that is, a wildflower who brightens the sky with its fire, despite its nature would suggest otherwise. In the song, his journey to become this flower work begins and ends in a flower field where he's at. In a sense, the flower field can be seen as a metaphor for the world itself, and in this environment, Namjoon presents himself as a flower who is exactly like the others. Like other wildflowers who bloom, live, and die in the same spot, Namjoon is nowhere, has no name, and knows no shame. So right off the bat, we immediately understand his wish for normality and anonymity. Even if millions of people know his name and see his light, Namjoon wants to blend in, to sing of those times where you don't really feel like yourself. This is because even if his experience is very unique, anyone can feel like a flower work from time to time.
Yes.
So this is a song for all the times where your own heart underestimates you and your own dreams end up devouring you. In the song, Aram tells his story starting from the very passion that led him to where he is today. He followed the long longing for the flames, imagined himself being successful, and his wish did come true, but at a very surprising cost. As he explains in the song, when his dream became a reality, fame turned into shackles, and the very desire that led him to success became the very reason he couldn't really be himself. This is because in many respects, the idol industry doesn't leave much room for self-expression, and this is something that RM and BTS themselves have discussed on multiple occasions.
It's weird to me to even hear that, because the fact that, like, I think that BTS has the most artistic expression and freedom from what I've been told. I don't know if that's still the case or not, with like new ownership, new management of Big Hit, but from what I heard, Bang PD kind of like just pretty much said, hey, here you go, do this, we trust in you guys. And I know that RM, Suga, and J-Hope did a lot of the writing for BTS, so it's kind of like hard for me to think that they didn't have a lot of creative freedom, especially with the mixtapes they were able to make and stuff. I don't know, that's just my thoughts on it, but y'all tell me what you think as well.
To name a few, songs like Idol, Intro Persona, or Black Swan talked about different aspects of their relationship with fame, as well as all their struggles to deal with all the labels and responsibilities that came with that. In a similar way, Wildflower hints at the idea that with success, Namjoon might have acquired status, but he also lost himself in the process. While enduring persistent pain and wishing himself a lovely night, Namjoon describes himself holding on to a balloon drifting by. This is a powerful imagery that implies a lot of instability, because this loss of self makes him lose sight of his soul, that is, his true essence, as well as the very dream that he's been working on. In the second verse, for instance, Namjoon describes the feeling of being so exhausted by everything that he only wishes it could end. This is a very difficult truth to admit, because the harsh reality of his dream almost made him forget of all the happy memories of the past and why he started this journey to begin with. In the lyrics, RM is especially struggling with the mask that he's forced to wear, which is none other than the persona that makes him play a role that he really doesn't want. For some people he's a hero, for others he's a villain, but the truth of the matter is that he's neither. He's barely anyone, and he's fine with that, because he'd rather be a nameless flower than being somebody that he's not. In order to be the man that people want him to be, Namjoon would have to become somebody else entirely. He would have to raise his voice, face prejudice, misunderstandings, all of which he already did, but now no more. Namjoon doesn't want to fly anymore. He wants to be a flower among many. He wants to stay grounded and go on a path without a purpose that will lead him to finally know his own sadness and even become friends with his own shadows. You see, in many respects, Wildflower represents his transition from a firework to a flower work. In his 20s, Namjoon was the explosion of light that people needed in the dark. He spent his boyhood shining in the sky, but now he needs to go and find his silence. He needs to get lost in that flower field, because by becoming nobody, he can finally understand who he is behind that mask that he wore for so long. From a boyhood spent burning like a firework, his transition is leading him to light up like a flowerwork for eternity, so it's worth living for a while, because someday he will return. Now in the video, this transition is made even more evident, because in a sense the world changes as it does. At the beginning, for instance, we are already in the sky, and we are descending from above as thousands of explosions light up the clouds. On the ground, we see Namjoon surrounded by fireworks, the light in the dark that represented him for so long. In the video, we see that at first he admires the light, but in a sense he outgrew its shine, so he looks down because the light is ephemeral anyway. His focus is now on the ground because in a way he wants to reconnect with his roots. He's a wildflower after all, so in the next scene Namjoon appears in the flower field where he wants to be. As he remembers the past, the video highlights the contrast between his difficult beginnings and his nicer present. When talking about his past, the memory is stormy and windy, but when he walks in the present, the weather is gentle and we see flower petals flying everywhere. If you look closely, both the petals and the wildflowers that we see in the field are all purple, so in a way, him reconnecting with his roots also means reconnecting with ARMY themselves. Even if the song expresses the struggles that he endured, his love for ARMY remains the same, and this is because you were there since the very beginning. As he says himself, his start was poetry, and for the longest time, that was his only strength and the dream that protected him. That dream was the one that you gave him. It's the purple stadium that made him a star, are, and his gratitude towards you is still all there, because in the flower field where he wants to escape, all flowers are purple. This is to say that even if in his past he had to confront the darkness and overcome it, you were never really a part of the things that made him struggle, because if anything, the purple was the very thing that kept him grounded and gave him comfort. As he leaves for a journey of his own, Namjoon leaves the fireworks behind to transform into a flower work, and in the video this transition is actually represented by the beautiful scene of the Nakwanori. These are a traditional type of Korean fireworks dating back as far as the Joseon dynasty. It's a technique where the powder is essentially divided into tiny bags that are stringed together over water and then eventually ignited. This unique method gives the impression of literal fire petals drifting by, so in the video they symbolize the lighting of the flower work.
That's
By
so
the end
cool.
of the video, Namjoon is exactly who and where he wants to be. He is a wildflower without a name, surrounded by other wildflowers without a name. They are all purple, so he's home, but instead of shining bright, he's speaking silence, finally resting at the end of his 20s. To know what the future has in store for him, we'll have to wait and see, but in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this video.
Bookish.
and
That was
if you
awesome.
did, please
That song was beautiful. Her explanation of it was really good too. I think the only things that I was kind of awful, and I think a little bit my understanding was more or less he doesn't consider himself a hero or a villain. He just feels like he's nothing kind of. And I like the way that she connected all those lines. She really has a good way of not only diving into the lyrics, but then also diving into just the meaning of the flow of the music video. I never would have thought of that the way that it was laid out. I honestly kind of had that. I saw the progression of things and how it ended with just him in a field, and I kind of got that same feeling, but she had a really good way of just summing up the entire thing. Either way, let's get into Still Life now. I'm really excited to watch this music video, so wipe it again. That's such a different change of scenery here we got going on. I love that lo-fi tone to it.
I'm still alive.
Oh dang.
Yeah. I'm still alive. Yo. What? Oh, yeah. I'm still alive. I'm still alive. Okay. Let's go. Now still alive, but I'm moving. Just live now, going forward. Yeah, 멈추지 않은 정물. 또 비워 나의 꽃을. Give me no name, cause I'm untitled. 계속 전시되는 내 삶. Yeah, 그래도 삶. 아직도 삶 과거는 가버렸고 미래는 모르네 두 갈래 길에서 숨 고르네 벗어나고 싶어 이 캔버스의 틀 어제와 내일이 내게 들인 그늘 난 그저 담담하게 live earth time 24/7 yeah baby I'm on time 난 그저 오늘을 살아 1분 1초마저 가진 처음부터 걸어보신 no I'm still alive
Dang.
Y'all can lock me in the frame I'm moving Yeah I'm still alive Life is better than the death I prove it Yeah I'm still alive But I'm moving Just live now Go forward Yeah 멈추지 않은 정물 또 비워 나의 꽃을 I'm still alive But I'm moving Just live now Go forward Yeah 멈추지 않은 정물 Yo I never stop baby let's get it now Earth day's my day one brother Baby 난 돈으로 시간을 벌어 걔네 초롱은 듣지만 닉비 버려 꼭 벌어지들 온라인에 목숨 걸어 Trendsetter I'm a friend better 시상해질 정도의 going getter 결국 네가 원하는 대로 되지 않았지 바른 건 달리 너무 잘 살아내는 내 뜻대로 Living 한남대로 무게만 탄탄 대로 갈 일이 없어 이제 강남대로 월세 밀린 너 빨리 당장 방 빼고 What a perfect song look at your chain Me better do it live with your mind stain 오늘을 살아 잡초처럼 야한 화초처럼 But I never stay Oh shit Hey Bob what's up? You don't know what I'm saying I know what you're saying bro Shit happens in life, but you know what happens is what happens. Hey, it's gonna be what's gonna be, bro. You just gotta do your thing. Yeah, come on. I'm still alive. Y'all can lock me in the frame. I'm moving. Yeah, I'm still alive.
I love this music video.
Life is better than the death I prove it. Yeah, I'm still alive. But I'm moving. Just live now. Go forward. Yeah, 멈추지 않은 정물. 또 비워 나의 꽃을. I'm still alive. But I'm moving. Just live now. Go forward. Yeah, 멈추지 않은 정물. Yo, I never stop, baby. Let's get it now.
That was pretty freaking cool. So really quick, Bookish Theories actually just posted a video yesterday, the explanation of Still Life and how it actually correlates to Wildflower. And though it was not put in here, I figured we might as well add it because we just did an explanation for Wildflower. There was a lot of stuff in Still Life that I feel like I needed an explanation for, so let's do that freaking right now. Swipe it! Give it to us again, Bookish Theories. Let's do this!
Hello and welcome back to Bookish Theories. In today's video, we'd like to talk about Aram's Still Life, focusing on a little breakdown and analysis of the lyrics and the music video to see what they can tell us about the concept and message of the song. Still Life is a collaboration with Anderson .Paak, co-written and co-composed by Aram himself. This is a song that expresses his desire to move forward despite blooming again like a flower who is still and seemingly inactive. Now, much like Namjoon himself has stated, in terms of style, Still Life is almost the direct opposite of Wildflower. One is upbeat, light-hearted and fun, while the other is more heartfelt, emotional and serious. Despite the stylistic difference, however, Still Life continues the metaphor introduced in Wildflower, and as we'll see in a second, to a certain extent it elaborates on it even further. Back in that song, Namjoon expressed his wish to rest in a field like a wildflower with no name. The emotional lyrics describe his personal struggle with fame and his wish to let go of that explosive lifestyle in exchange for a simpler and more genuine life. With Still Life, this imagery comes back in full force, but the song also clarifies that him being a flower, that is a literal example of a life that stays still, doesn't hinder his intention to keep on moving and creating. If in Wildflower him being nameless could be understood as him wishing to live an anonymous life like the countless flowers in a field, now he explains that he is nameless because in this new stage of his life he is actually still untitled. He's an evolving work of art who doesn't want to be confined in a frame because he's constantly moving and always changing. Because of that, the still life that he's talking about is not so much a still life understood in the artistic sense. It's not motionless, lifeless and never changing, but rather quite the opposite. After everything that he endured, his life is still life in the sense that it is still alive. It moved until now, and it will keep on moving in the future as well. This is a far more optimistic view of this new chapter of his career, because despite all the uncertainties to overcome, these lyrics still convey the idea that the best is quite literally yet to come. Even if the past is gone and the future is unknown, even if right now he's at a crossroads catching his breath and figuring out his next step, he's unfazed by the shadows that the past and the future cast on him because he's living in the moment and his life keeps moving every second. Like he says in the lyrics, right now every day is his day one. He's always beginning a new path. He's choosing life because it's much better than death and he wants to prove that to you, but this time on his own terms. Like he explained in Wildflower, instead of exploding like a firework who is loud, bright, but also short-lived, he chooses to light up like a flowerwork and shine bright while still honoring his true nature. In a similar way, Still Life explains that just because he's blooming again like a flower, this apparent stillness not only doesn't affect his creative evolution, but quite literally encourages it. Since now he can finally live like he wants, and now more than ever he has the freedom to move in whichever direction is his fit. He is not in a rush to figure out what to do, what to produce, or even who to be next, because he knows that everything will evolve as life goes on. This is a carefreeness that he earned after years of hard work. In the song, he's literally buying time with the money that he made, and as he does so, it tells us not to listen to the haters and the fools because those people don't know what they're talking about. These are individuals who are ready to put their life on the line for a bit of clout online. So listening to their nonsense doesn't bring anything good. While they wish for his downfall, Namjoon is living the life that they would like for themselves. In the song,
I just want to say this. That's a big reason I wanted to watch this explanation because there was a lot of lyrics coming at me really quick and I knew that she was going to slow it down and break it down for us. So that's one big reason that I really wanted to watch this as well too. I knew there was some stuff underlying, but I'm glad she did this.
He actually mentions 91 Hanam Boulevard, which is a reference to a real-life location that is known for its expensive apartments and celebrity tenants. 91 Hanam is a complex that is almost the Korean Beverly Hills, if you will. BTS and a lot of other celebrities are known to live there, and if you look online, you will see that not many people can actually afford that kind of accommodation. It's so exclusive, in fact, that Namjoon points out that he doesn't need to go to Gangnam anymore because he's already living in the Royal Road while paying being born only in 94. In turn, his haters flex even if their rent is due, so Namjoon shuts them up and lives like a wildflower the way he always wanted. Now in the video, his interpretation of still life is visually expressed in a very clever way, which, speaking of Namjoon, is actually no surprise at all. For one, the video is set on a train, which is a location that in and of itself perfectly conveys the concept of still life as intended in the song. Just like Namjoon is still moving, in the sense that he's both still and still moving. When you travel on a train, you look still, but you're actually traveling very fast. This is a contrast that already depicts the concept very well, but the video doesn't stop there, because it actually shows us yet another example of still life instead of the one that I just gave you. In the video, we see that Namjoon enters the carriage and goes to his seat. As he opens his indigo notebook, which as we know is the account of his 20s, time suddenly stops and he's the only one moving. When he starts interacting with his surroundings, the structure of reality slowly disintegrates until there is nothing left. The first to go are the passengers, then the seats, and finally the train itself, which breaks down into pieces and begins to dance around him in a white void. In the behind the scenes, Namjoon actually compared this process to the movie Inception, and this reference is actually quite fitting because, spoiler alert, what is taking place is actually happening inside of his imagination. As his mind wanders during his creative process, his body is motionless in the carriage. His mind is alive, but his body is still. So in a sense, still life can also be seen as a metaphor for the unstopping still life that allows him to create his art. In the video, we see that his creative process is momentarily interrupted by a member of the crew dropping a cup of water. This little accident stops the movement of his brain, but this interruption is only temporary because as soon as he's left alone, his reflection stands up again to keep moving like before. In this context, the reflection obviously shows us the inner Namjoon wandering in his imagination. Even if his physical body remains motionless, his mind is dancing, and it's precisely this dynamism that eventually grants us the music that he produces. By the end of the video, we see Namjoon in real life starting to write on his indigo notebook. This is an indication that the never-ending movement of his mind inspired him to record the account of his 20s that indigo ended up being. The result of his still life is what we can listen today, and now that he finally understood the life that he wants, we can definitely expect this flower to move more than ever. To see the results of this movement, we'll have to wait and see, but in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this video.
Yes! So for real, if you guys have not subscribed to Bookish Theories yet, please go hit a subscribe on her channel. She's freaking awesome. She does a great job at explaining things, and I love her freaking voice. But my god, both those songs had so much more depth even than what's on the surface. I feel like Still Life for me seemed like is kind of how I would explain a lot of BTS songs. They sound really poppy, sound really fun, but there's like a deeper meaning throughout it. And Wildflower I felt like had this really melancholy feel to it, but I think that once you really take in what he's saying there's a lot of personal growth and just reflection that he's got going on. So it's not necessarily like a bad melancholy thing. I really love both of these songs. We're actually later on today going to be dropping a video that's going to be him at Tiny Desk. So we're going to be watching the Tiny Desk concert. And then on our Patreon, we're going to be doing the entire RM Live in Seoul video as well too. So that whole entire concert will be on our Patreon later on this week. I hope y'all are having a blessed day or night, whatever time it is. Thank y'all so freaking much for sharing a little bit of time with me today. Spread some positivity out there. Be kind to one another. And if anybody needs anything at all of my socials are at John Reeves Live. And I'll catch y'all next time. Freaking toodles!